So, as we move forward, what I really want you to be focusing on with our study of the Canterbury Tales is I want you to pay attention to how Chaucer's physical description, how his character descriptions in the prologue match this underlying commentary he has about the culture, about the social mores, about the aristocratic values, um, and he is portraying these individuals, but they very much represent how he sees society. And it's not fair to say, well, he obviously has a problem with the church, because when you look at the plowman and the parson, you do have devout characters within the church, but at the same time, you know um, you have that tension going on with, why does he hate the friar so much? There is a little story in his own history, just legal records, that show he was actually fined at one point in his life for getting into a fight with a Franciscan friar. Um, that may have been the driving force behind why he portrayed the friar as such a horrible character. Um, or it may have been a more global commentary on, here the role of this individual within society was to help the community. That was each part of clergy had their own roles. The monk was supposed to stay cloistered, and he was supposed to dedicate himself to a very disciplined lifestyle of translating religious texts, of praying, of working the land. That was a very physical, cloistered life. And what do you see the monk doing? Well, he likes to hunt. And he's clearly, not staying indoors. He's actually a tan fellow, so he's spending a lot of time outdoors. And you get that, with each of these individuals. For example, as I was saying, the friar's job was he was within a communal parish, and he was collecting charities to give back to the community, those in need. And we're told that he was the best beggar of his batch, but what he did with the money was to advance his own personal desires rather than help people around him. Of course, you have the partner who does the quintessential thing partners do, sells indulgences, which, that there's all sorts of problems with that going on in this time period. Um, but then he also sells just fake relics. He's just a total counterfeit. So, does Chaucer have a problem with the church? I don't know that we could say that exactly, but we can say that he's aware that people in positions that don't match their own character and their own desires are going to act out. That it's difficult for people to successfully repress their own passions. And in such a rigid hierarchy, it's necessary for the social structure to work for people to repress their own natural passions. But because of how unnatural it is, it's just not very likely that that's going to work well. So as you're reading and as you're thinking about discussion board posts and themes and what kinds of things to follow, I'd love for you to take an individual, a character, and to write just a brief kind of overview of what you think Chaucer's doing with this character. And then as we get into the tales, I'd love for you to take that to the next level where you're looking at how the interactions within the tales and how the two tales together offer some type of commentary that Chaucer is up to. And again, why do we still read this stuff? Because it's just human. It's humorous, and that was one of the things that Chaucer was doing in a culture where the French and the Italians were the ones who were, the most entertaining and the most moral, and the literature really worth reading. And the English language, it's not a pretty language. I mean, even today, if you hear someone speak, it's just not a pretty language. It's coarse. It's not, when you look at the Italian, you look at the French, you're looking at the language of romances. You do not have that with English. And so English wasn't really on the map for literature because it just wasn't considered the same beauty, the same complexity. And what Chaucer did with the Canterbury Tales by writing in the vernacular was he created this complicated, multi-dimensional, entertaining work, and he basically put British literature on the map by saying it doesn't have to be a romance language to be worth reading. And that's why we still read it today, because you can pull any one of those characters out and you can find a modern counterpart who has the same values and has the same, you know, kind of persona. That was something when I did teach high school. One of the things I had my students do was create a modern counterpart. Pick one of the characters and who would that individual be. And it's an easy thing to do because they're so, I don't want to say stereotypical of passions and human nature, but they are kind of, but there's also this idea that when you're looking at the human condition, it doesn't change, especially when you're talking about just what drives individuals, and